Thank you. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. May I have call to order, please?
Director Asner,
Here.
Director Byers. Here. Director Faulkner,
Here.
Director Hudson, Director Moeller, Vice President Petrov. Here. And President Cooney.
Here. Pledge of allegiance, please. Stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everybody. All right. First presentation, the public review committee final report, please, with recommendations. Thank you for all your hard work.
You're welcome. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
Okay. So as a member of one of the co-chairs of the Public Review Committee, we have been meeting since September of 2021. I have been taking an in-depth look at every aspect of special school district. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge all of our committee members. My fellow co-chair is Mary Felton. We also have Dr. Sheila Powell-Walker, who are all members of the Governing Council. We also have the DESE appointees, which include Dr. Jenny Bender, Dr. Andrew Stewart, and Dr. Mary Ann Tejan. And then we have our members of the Parent Advisory Council of Special School District, which are Dr. Kamisha Carter, Rob Eaton, and Erica Williams. And again, we have been meeting for the better part of this school year to review all of the happenings of special school district, and we have come up with the following recommendations. Our recommendations will cover the areas of equity, the partnership agreement, continuous improvement, relationships and CTE, conflict resolution, post-secondary outcomes, personnel, communication, governance, and finances. Our first recommendation as it pertains to equity is as follows. To continue implementation of the 8 objectives of the 2018 Blueprint for Equity and the guiding principles/action plans for the 2020 Equity Framework. This also included is to monitor the Framing the Framework's training schedule and use feedback from participants to provide continuous improvement in the training, as well as follow-up activities designed to increase fidelity of equity in action. The partnership agreement should also be should identify the joint equity responsibilities of SSD and the partner districts. And each of our recommendations has recommended actions that follow. The second recommendation is for the partnership agreement, and that is to implement and evaluate outcomes of the partnership agreement across the 22 districts using the document assessment tool, including attention to as evidenced by metrics. Secondly, the individual partnership agreement between SSD and a partner district should be discussed and adopted during an open board meeting. The agreement should be signed by both the superintendent and board president from both SSD and the partner district. Thirdly, continue the use of advisory committees, liaisons, and et cetera, to provide transparent communication regarding the partnership agreement items, outcomes, and next steps. Our third recommendation is for continuous improvement. Develop continuous improvement methods to address processes, identify measures, gather data, analyze and publish results, and implement improvements in all areas addressed in the recommendations. These include equity, partnership agreements, career and technical education, post-secondary outcomes, personnel, governance, and finance. We assessed during our evaluation that recommendations 4 and 9, which 4 covers relationships and 9 covers communication, should be combined. So the combined recommendations for 4 and 9 are as follows. Establish specific planned meetings between families, partner districts, and SSD to improve communication and the exchange of status and information. The SSD Board of Education and Partner Districts Board of Education representatives should meet on a regular basis to provide the SSD board feedback on SSD services, communication, and priorities. Families, partner districts, and SSD need to develop a common set of advocacy priorities for use in meetings with public officials and legislators. And finally, evaluate the effectiveness of communication tools used to engage and seek feedback from stakeholders regarding their experiences with SSD staff and any suggestions or concerns that they might have. Recommendation number 5 is for career and technical education with specific references to North and South Technical High School. North Tech and South Tech should be recognized and supported by internal and external stakeholders as unique and distinctly different institutions operating within special school districts, fulfilling the critical and economically important mission of developing the future workforce of our region by educating and training eligible high school and adult learners, both abled and disabled, in occupations labeled high demand by governmental authorities. Recommendation number 6 in our previous PRC was identified as conflict resolution. In our review, we did not feel that there was a recommendation needed for this section. Recommendation 7 deals with post-secondary outcomes. The recommendation is to support the proactive use of the IEP transition process to inform both families and staff of the individual students' goals and needs to successfully transition from K-12 to post-secondary opportunities and outcomes. Recommendation number 8, personnel. Examine the hiring and retention of the SSD workforce, including the interview, training, and review of employees. The interview process should include the timely communication with job candidates, establish an annual summary regarding hiring and retention with an emphasis on equity. Focus on the following metrics: measures of job performance, job retention, as well as reason for leaving involuntary resignation. The second recommendation is to employee feedback and job performance evaluations should be used as a means to promote change and improvement in an employee. Third, examine the onboarding process of SSD employees at SSD schools and at partner schools, and measure client and employee satisfaction. And finally, review and revise current and new job descriptions, considering current industry job board formats to include relevant language and terminology. Use the job descriptions for job board postings, job fairs, and interviews. Recommendation number 9 is communication. Again, that was combined with recommendation number 4. Recommendation number 10, as it relates to governance, improve the effective communication of the SSD Governing Council, Parent Advisory Council, and the SSD Board of Education by creating opportunities for these organizations to meet and exchange information on a regular basis. Recommendation number 11, finance. Continue the process used to ensure the SSD Board of Education and the Governing Council have a sound understanding of the assumptions and methodology used to create the annual SSD budget for approval. Continue to improve the financial quality and integrity associated with the budget by conducting annual reviews of the SSD operating budget by the Board of Education and Governing Council and by external auditors. Thirdly, continue to develop 5-year strategic projections of revenue, expenses, program expenditures, and balances. This concludes our recommendations. I would like to thank each and every member who participated in the Public Review Committee process. We have spent hours and hours and many hours with presentations with their administration. We have reviewed documentation as requested by the members of the PRC, and we have basically given of our time to ensure that the success of special school district is a benefit to all. Do you have any additional questions for us?
I do know that this was a major undertaking for people who have jobs or other lives, and so when when they talk about the hours they put in a lot of hours, not only just while they were here, but outside. So I want to thank you. I think that this just allows us to be a better district, to be able to really hear from the voice of not only just internal people, but our external staff and our families. And so I really do appreciate this. This is going to continue to help us, not only with our strategic plan, but our CSIP, and to be able to really kind of keep our mark. Our goal is to make sure that we update at the Governing Council at least twice a year to see progress with this. Because I don't know if that was always necessarily shared before, but we want to make sure you put all the effort into this, and then we want to make sure that we are acknowledging and utilizing the expertise that you brought and the suggestions to be able to keep working on this over the next 4 years. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I had a comment, a question. First of all, again, I want to echo, thank you for this work that you did. I especially thought the recommendations about relationships, communication, internally with the board, the governing council, and also externally with the other stakeholders were really great. And the specific recommendations they didn't go into, I think were excellent. I had a question about just to make sure I understood your specific intent and the comments about North and South Tech, where you stated that they should be identified as unique and distinct institutions. I just want to make sure that I understood your intent internally. Did you mean unique and distinct from one another, North Tech versus South Tech, or unique and distinct from the other SSD schools?
It is the latter. It's unique and distinct from the core mission of Special School District, which is special education for students in St. Louis County, but that it is truly, you are providing the career and technical education for the county as well. So that is called out separately in those two schools, but that their mission should be aligned.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
My comment is that, first of all, thank you as well as the group. You've done a yeoman's job in reference to being able to go through all of the areas of enhancement and improvement for the institution. I believe and have been heard on many occasions asking the question, how special do we want to be? And I think that we're in the direction of being able to be difference makers. I think that is a timely task that we are faced with as a society. And so I truly believe that this institution has foundation and leadership will to be difference makers. So I totally appreciate all of the work that you guys have put in and hope that the recommendations in which you have outlined comes about and making those things in this institution a much greater player in the scheme of education for the state of Missouri.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
No, not comments. On the recommended actions under the governance part, it talks about establishing a leadership council. Who would that be composed of?
Well, it kind of outlines it, so it would include the SSD superintendent, two representatives from both the Board of Education, the Governing Council, and the Parent Advisory Council. So what we found out during this process, not necessarily found out, but really felt was something that needed to be addressed, is that each of the groups operate in isolation of the other, and we never have an opportunity to share information. So the opportunity for the Governing Council to actually have conversations with the Board of Education, for the Parent Advisory Council to actually have conversations with the Board and the Governing Council. They provide presentations, but there's never really a cyclical conversation that occurs with them amongst the three groups.
Then on the Governing Council member requirements. Would we be able to make those requirements, or does the Governing Council have to make that themselves?
That's a good question, and we need to research it, but I think that as chair of...
No, the problem would be I don't think I can do it for some other agency.
Correct.
But if they want to.
Right. Well, as chair of the Governing Council in the upcoming school year, I will be happy to make that recommendation. One of the things that we came across during this process in our conversation is that many of the members of the Governing Council take that role as one of the roles that needs to be filled by their partner district. So it's not necessarily, the intent is not necessarily there. Well, let me not say intent. The level of education to intently speak about the concerns of special school districts are not always there for people who are in their first year on the school board.
Right.
The first year on the school board is a whole lot of learning going on, as many of you all know. So you don't necessarily have time to, or understanding of things outside of your current school district. So that's why we're asking that those members of the governing council not be in their first year of their first term.
So the governing council could set their own, would set, or hopefully would set their own requirements,
Absolutely.
or recommendations.
Correct, and I think it's something that we can discuss at our next governing council meeting and should be an easy fix.
How about the same thing I had on increasing the number of governing council meetings?
Mm-hmm.
That would be the governing council's decision. not
Correct.
ours, correct?
Yeah, I think it is, it's difficult because we only meet 4 times a year. And oftentimes, at the times of the meetings, we're required, by statute to make some very serious decisions. So if we had more meetings and some of that other information could be relayed to us, so we have more time to process. And again, it's an additional duty as an elected board member for a partner district. So it doesn't always, necessarily, get the full attention that it requires.
While I am not a strong advocate of Zoom meetings, there is clearly certain benefits of having Zoom meetings.
Absolutely.
For example, for governing council meetings, you always have quorum since that's it,
Absolutely.
which is something that was not that way before.
That is correct.
So I think that's important. And so I would hope that you would continue, or at least give the options of having a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, I think that since we have moved to Zoom meetings for the governing council, our meetings have been much more productive and better well attended. It depends where people are coming from when you have to come to this building. Depending on what part of the county, that could be a 20, almost 30-minute drive with traffic. So it's much easier for us to convene via Zoom. And given the increased attendance, I think that that's something that we would like to see continue.
It would probably to have certain meetings set up for the governing council where you're in person. That way you could meet as a group and get to know each other. But I think the option of Zoom would be excellent to continue.
I'm all in favor of that, and I think that there's been a consensus of the group.
Thank you.
Thank you. Additional questions? All right, thank you. Thank you for your time tonight, and thank you, Larry, he's online.
Thank you, Larry, wherever you are.
He gave us a wave.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. At the current time, we have one public comment. The individual is unable to be here. The issue on the public comment was a legal issue that we can't deal as a public comment, but we will respond via email. My understanding is
We won't be responding. Leave the email.
we will receive the email. And that will be forwarded to the individuals who will that request. Would someone like to make an approval of the agenda?
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Superintendent report, Fort Flutter, update on the current CSIP plan.
This is our last presentation of the 21-22 school year by Molly Bolton. Surprise!
Molly, we should have a bottle of water up there.
I brought my cup, I'm
Yeah.
Just one tonight, that's one.
We are gonna excuse her for the next board meeting. Give her a little vacation.
So good evening, President Cuneo, Vice President Claptrap, Board of Directors, and Dr. Keenan. My name is Molly Bolton. I am the Executive Director of Teaching, Learning, and Accountability. And tonight I'm going to present to you our final update on our current CSIP plan. As this plan will expire as of Friday, or Thursday, actually. Next slide, please. So this is just an update on the fourth quarter report for our current CSIP. Slide. So this is just a reminder of what our goals and strategies look like in our current CSIP. So goal 1 being student success, really looking at the programming and being able to increase the performance of our students. We do have 4 strategies there with supporting educators with multi-tiered systems of support, implementing individual post-secondary plans, making sure we have a safe environment, and then working with our families. Next slide, please. So you can see, here's each one of our strategies and the accomplishments they had over this last quarter. I'm happy to report under this goal that all milestones have been met. And you can also see what our next steps are now that this plan will be closing out. So for 1.1, we will be moving to the new CSIP strategy, which will now become 2.2. For 1.2, we'll be moving on to a new CSIP strategy, which will be 1.1. 1.3, our safety will now fall under a program monitoring report that will be done annually to report out on how things are going. Also, John Mueller has the opportunity to present to National Missouri School Board Association at our conference about our incident command plans that we have in place. And so he presented to the state back in the spring, and then they asked him to present nationally. So that's really great that our work is being recognized at that national level. And then 1.4, we'll be moving on to a strategic plan for next year. Next slide, we're looking at our workforce excellence, and this is under the direction of Dan Kelly, our Director of Human Resources, looking at that retention and recruitment of our staff, and then also working on the diversity of our staff. Next slide. So we're going to continue on with this work. Some things to note is, we are attending job fairs and gathering some continuous improvement data. Again, continuing to work with our universities and colleges for that diversity piece. You can also see our May data there that show our male-female ratio as well as our white and black ratio for hiring for May. Next slide. Our last one is our engagement goal, and this one works with our relationships with our partners, our partnerships with businesses and industry, and also voice of customer data. Next slide. So as you can see, both of these will be moving into a strategic plan, and so they are working on their succession planning to move these pieces over to the strategic plan for next year. So you'll be hearing more about those strategies through that strategic plan. But our last goal for this is our equity goal. Next slide. And Dr. Macklin has been working, finishing up all the presentations for framing the frameworks for this year, and then starting to work on the presentations for our year 3, which you guys approved in March. And so those presentations are about completed and ready to roll for next year. And then also taking those equity indicators that were approved and seeing what our data kind of looks like as our baseline. So that as we look at that annually, we'll have a good benchmark. But that is the end of the report. Any questions?
Thank you for an excellent report.
Thank you.
All right. Would someone like to make an approval of the consensual items?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Action items. Okay. We have 3 issues. First one, I guess, the Center for Autism. Someone like to make a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right, questions? Yeah, I have. It was being put down.
Yes, sir, Dr.
How many kids are there, do you know?
Center for Autism,
Yeah.
6 currently.
6. They're at $105,000 per year. Is that a 12-month program?
So that depends on if the child needs 2-on-1 or 1-on-1. And that's just the support that the child needs and the programming the child needs.
Okay, so it's $105,000 per year can vary depending upon.
That's, all of our students are not set at that rate.
That's the most expensive rate?
Yes, sir.
Right, that's what I need. Any other questions? All in favor of approval? So is there we have a motion on the table, we have a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Carries. Next is the SY contract. Anybody have any questions on that? Pardon? Oh, we need a motion.
Second.
All right. We have 4 students.
Yes, sir.
I was somewhat confused on the timeline, so that's why I did 63,784. I was wondering, tell me where is that timeline and how many?
So because our Giant Step program falls between 2 fiscal years, we do a contract for the entire school year, and then we also do an additional contract that covers the July and August. That's the contract that would cover the fees for July and August.
I'll send any questions.
They moved to a 12-year, or not 12-year, 12-month
That's 12.
school, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
12. Any additional questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. So 8.03, admission of non-resident students. Someone like to make a motion to approve?
Second.
Dr. Asner?
I did.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. All right, would someone like to make a motion for a closed meeting of the Board of Education on June 28th, July 12th, July 26th, 2022. I need a roll call on this, please.
Director Asner?
Yes.
Director Byers? Director Faulkner?
Yes.
Director Patra? Yes. Or Vice President? And President Cuneo?
Yes. Would someone like to make a motion for the approval of our last month's meetings? It would include June 14th, April 26th, and 17th, May 24th, and May 25th. Someone, there's a second on that. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The following items were approved during the executive meeting on June 14th. Employment, resignations, retirements, salary adjustments, and extra duty pay. Employment of ESY. And summer program staff, summer 2022. And the superintendent's contract. Congratulations. May 24th, the following items were approved. Employment resignations, retirements, salary adjustments, extra duty pay. Employment of ESY staff and summer program. Reemployment of part-time hourly staff for 2022 and 2023 school year. people had a chance to think. Any comments if we're on Board of Communications, anyone? Honored events. Someone like to make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Please take 5, and then we'll go on back to executive session. We're no longer